when we talk about soul realignment, my job is to get you back in touch with your soul and your purpose. We're going to do a craniotomy, brain surgery. I had my wisdom teeth removed. That's pretty much it. So we're going to do brain surgery on this one lesion. You can stay here or you can just go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Life Ascended, where we bring in practical tips and tools to guide you in your spiritual ascension every day. And I am so excited to bring a beautiful guest that I know you're going to all love. May I present to you Eden Koz. She is a soul realignment specialist with nearly 25 years of experience in spiritual work, including Reiki, energy healing, and intuitive guidance. After a near-death experience following a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis in 2016, Eden deepened her connection with the spiritual realms. She now helps others navigate the Great Awakening through her company, Just Be LLC, and her podcast, Just Be Spiritual Boom. Eden is also a mother of 2, including a special needs daughter who has just been her greatest teacher. So she is currently completing her first book, The Wisdom of Just Being. So thank you, Eden, for coming on the show today.
Cynthia, so good to see you again. And thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you again. You're just one of my favorite people.
So thank you.
You're such an inspiration.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm deeply touched. And I hope, like you said, people are going to like me. I'm like, oh, I hope so. I'll be fun or whatever.
And if they don't, then, you know,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Go find another show.
Right. That's the first typical or the first, what did you say your show is about? I love your description. Practical tools or
practical tools to guide you in your spiritual ascension every day. So
yes,
yeah, it's all about what can we do every single day, you know, really, because it's a practice. Spirituality is a practice.
Oh my gosh, it sure is. Okay, and one of those to tag into that is not caring what people think about you. That is one of the big parts of it. So there we go, right off the bat.
That's right. So what matters is actually what you think about yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, we all struggle with that, but maybe that's what you help people.
Maybe so.
So I actually want to start off the episode with talking about this concept of soul realignment specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've been doing this for over 20 years. I would love to know more about what that is and how has it evolved over the years?
Okay. Beautiful question, because I've changed my title multiple times also so people could understand it. Yet I went with a very etheric title this time, more ethereal, I guess is the best way to say it, because more people understand or want to know exactly what that means. And I did put out there for a while too. I'm a psychological empath, which people are like, what's that? So that's essentially how it started. So within that, it's like I'm not a therapist, but it's kind of like a therapist on drugs, essentially, because there's nothing Western or classical about what I do. Yet you can come in and have one session with me. And I've had multiple people that have been with counselors, been with PhDs and, done a whole bunch of work. But when you come in and do a session with me, like right off the bat, I can feel emotions that are in you. I hear questions to ask. So the first session is like what I call therapy on drugs. Like within an hour, I don't need to know anything about you. You just sit in front of me, talk a little bit, feel what's going on. We do some body work as well. Yet I just know what questions to ask. I know what to hit. I know what to trigger. Sometimes I hear things I'm like, oh my God, am I really supposed to ask that question? And I get yes. And I've been doing this a long enough time too, that at first, sometimes I was like, oh my gosh, because it takes bravery to do what I do as well, because I'm about truth. So when you come to see me, there's no pussyfooting around. There's no, I mean, my job is to help you ascend. Okay, so when we talk about soul realignment, my job is to get you back in touch with your soul and your purpose and who you really are, who you may have forgotten, or, I had all these trauma built up. So we're going to clear some of that so you can get back to the authentic, sovereign being that you are, this human being who has this extreme spiritual connection. Yet I'm also about embodying that humanness of you. We can't skip over that and get right to the spiritual stuff. You got to bring it, you got to align it all together. So it has been amazing work. And it's been interesting, I guess, to watch me evolve through it and improving my craft, which I'm sure, Cynthia, you can acknowledge this for yourself. But to even look at who I am today versus who I was when I first started or 10 years ago, also because of experience, personal experience that you've had, it just really makes the work have such depth and such also that you have to walk the walk. So it's not like I'm sitting here on some throne going, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that. And no, I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, in the past 4 years, divorce changed all my relationships. I went through that near death experience. Was in the hospital for a month and a half, had a major healing for 2 years. So there's nothing about my life that you can say, oh, she's so perfect. Well, it is perfect, yet it's been parts of it have been very difficult, yet needed these difficulties to be who I am today, to be able to share my wisdom or whatever you want to call it, to embody this life and to show others how to do it. Woo!
Yeah,
What was
absolutely.
that?
That's great. That's
Oh,
perfect.
thanks. Thank you very much. And you can probably attest to this too. I started my career out in advertising, and my life in my late 20s was really off balance. So I went out to dinner with two of my friends and they talked about this woman. She was a meditation teacher, but they just were like, she is just amazing. And I was searching for something because something was just not aligned and balanced in my life. And I didn't really, oh, she teaches meditation. Okay, whatever. I just like how they talked about her. And she was my first spiritual teacher. And you took a weekend with her to see if this fit. And if it did fit, you could do it weekly. And it was just, Cynthia, it wasn't that I was just out of balance and working too hard. I had not had a connection to God, to spirit. And this knocked me on the head with that. It just totally opened me up. So I studied under her for 6 years. And my husband at the time, we were being transferred to Alabama. And out of the blue, she came up to me and she's like, well, you need to start teaching this now. And it was
Hmm.
beautiful because I was leaving my corporate career and moving again to the state of Alabama, which is hilarious to start. But she was so, I mean, when she said that to me, it was kind of like I didn't even skip a beat. I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this or what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to start. And she believes in me. And in essence, I had been training the whole time. I didn't realize that. I thought I was just going for me. And then suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I I know how to do this. I might not know how to do it exactly, but I am willing to step into this. And when you start stepping into it, you can't not. Like for me, like this was my path, obviously, but I couldn't, like I was this. I could no longer do advertising. I could no longer just do this corporate stuff that really didn't fulfill my soul. This
Hmm.
does. This is soul work, baby. I love it.
Yeah. Yay.
Yay! Yoo-hoo!
Well, that's so exciting. How fun to have that experience and just to
Yes.
have it blossom into what it is now. So, and now that you're able to help so many people who obviously I feel like now we are in such a time where this is desperately needed on a global level.
Mhm.
And, people need to wake up to their souls. They need to realize that they're not just their body, and this isn't just the one and only lifetime they've ever had. You're an infinite being of light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and it's time to move through victimhood and smallness. And part of me too is connecting people with how powerful they are, and that we do have this collective consciousness, yet we're all unique, yet we're all part of source or God. And I say God a lot because I desire a very personal connection, because I know some folks say the universe and source. It's all, to me, it's all the same thing. Yet I like to have a very personal connection. Well, like God can knock on my door and say, "Hey, come have some tea together." So yeah, it's personal for me. But the crux of it is, through this great awakening, is just discovering not only our sovereignty, but how powerful, and the pineal gland, and how these abilities that you and I have, everybody has these. It's just time, and we're all going to do it uniquely. Yet it's time to get back to the instrument of the heart, versus being brain centric and thinking concentric, or intuition centric. That the heart guides everything, and these two pieces are very important, but they all play into that. Yet it's just this magic, this ascension that we're coming into. It's so friggin' exciting. I mean,
it
it's
is.
difficult, don't get me wrong. Yet I'm also at the point now where it's really, oh gosh, if this is fair to say, let me check with myself. That for me personally, getting out of the hardship of it and starting to really move into the beauty of it.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Here's a short message from our sponsor, Ascension17.com. We're in the time of the Great Awakening, and you're being called to ascend or risk getting left behind. Are you noticing ascension symptoms like emotional intensity, repeating number patterns, or a desire for more love and compassion? These are signs that your crystalline light body is ready to be activated. Get your free training to help you step into your higher consciousness. In it, you'll learn how your hands reflect your soul's purpose and how to use them as portals to access higher states of being. Don't wait. Visit ascension17.com/training to start raising your vibration, aligning to your highest potential, and embracing your divine perfection so you can co-create heaven on earth. And now, back to the episode.
So
Thank you.
that leads me to,
Yes.
I want to know more about this near-death experience that you had.
Okay.
Because, in my opinion, and this is definitely an opinion, I feel like we go through some of these life or death situations to really wake us up. And I feel like there is opportunity in these experiences. And it's not meant to like punish us, or,
Right.
like some people, again, you talked about the victim mode. It's like we're not victims.
Mhm.
But
Right.
sometimes we feel that way, of course, when we have something horrible like lung cancer happen to us, so tell me about that.
Yes. All right. So it's what is really interesting about it too is there are a lot of near death experiences where someone they weren't treating their physical body well. They weren't eating right. They weren't thinking not the right things, higher things. That wasn't the case for me. I was at the point where I had just it'd been about a year. I had a meditation spiritual center. So I live right now in Akron, Ohio. Okay, there are yoga places, but there were no meditation centers. So it was a really big deal to have this brick and mortar studio. And I had just moved 3 months prior. So I was in my first studio that was really kind of run down or whatever. So I just moved. So a client of mine basically said, Eden, you can have this space for free for 7 months. Okay. So I was at this place in the Kruger Shopping Plaza. There was a guy who was like a little tinkering guy who would come in and fix your TV or whatever. So you would go into his space. It was like a hoarder. And then I had this bait shop right next door. People would come in. I mean, it was just this interesting, eclectic, rundown little place. So, this new place that I was going to have for free for 7 months, I had been in it 3 months. There was an oral surgeon right next to me. On the other side, a law firm. So, very corporate, very nice. I had people come in and paint beautiful things in there. I mean, it was just my dream. Okay, 3 months into it, I went downhill dramatically in a week. And this is how it happened. Like I was feeling everything was great. And then within that quick period of time, so I remember on Monday, me and the two folks that work with me, we went to this school and we're doing this spiritual stuff at a school. And then come Friday, if my then husband hadn't gotten me out of bed, it hurt to talk. It hurt to open my eyes. I didn't want to eat anymore. I wouldn't have cared if I'd lived or died. I was so out of it. So anyway, we went to, after Doc in a Box, we went to the emergency room the next day. And basically there was a lesion in my lung and 3 in my brain. Mm. And within that week, I'm imagining they had grown so quickly because I'm guessing if it had been 3 or 4 days longer, they would have busted in my head or something. I don't know. It was that dramatic. So the emergency room basically said, "Hey, this looks like stage 4 lung cancer. Do you smoke? No. Do you?" I was like, "Okay, this doesn't." And it was so neat having done this work at this point for a long time that again, this isn't happening to me and it's not negative. It was so great to go, "Oh my God, there's something physically that's going on that makes sense of all this. Yay. Okay, this is very interesting." And they're giving me some drugs right now. So the pain that I'd been feeling massively for a week, it was like a migraine times 1,000, Cynthia. I can't even tell you. It was so painful. So they gave me these drugs and suddenly I was feeling decent. So I was like, okay, well, this is going to be an adventure. Don't know what this is going to be yet. I'm okay with it. And I don't really register with the stage 4 lung cancer, but all right. So immediately they took me to the hospital. So at this point, my girls were 14 and 12. You know, your life changes in a moment. Yet I had such faith already that I was like, okay, well, here we go. All right, to the near-death experience. And then I'll talk about the diagnosis too, because the diagnosis obviously changed. So I had, they tried to do a biopsy on my lung, couldn't do that because it's too close to my heart. So we're going to do a craniotomy, brain surgery. I'd never been, I had my wisdom teeth removed. That's pretty much it. So we're going to do brain surgery on this one lesion that we think we can get to. However, you know, this is kind of the last resort. We don't know what you're going to be like after surgery. You may not be able to walk. You may not, we don't know. Yet this seems to be it. And at this time, I do not really do Western medicine, but because it was such an emergency and so drastic, and a lot of my family was in Western medicine, that's why I went this route. But I also had my crystals and had people do healings on me and that sort of thing. So I want to make that very clear as well. So anyway, I ended up having 2 brain surgeries, but after my first one, and this was the only time I allowed myself to be in the hospital at night by myself, because there are always things that happen, but it was perfect that I was by myself at this point. So it was around 1 o'clock or so. I woke up in the ICU. My door was open and I was so discombobulated, like, you know, that little thing that you hit to bring a nurse in. I didn't know where that was, or I was just groggily waking up, and through the doorway, there was someone had just come in, major accident, crying, throwing up. Then I could also hear some of the staff laughing together. I mean, it was so dramatic, which the ICU can be that way, but this is the only time I experienced it like that. And as I'm listening to all this, just wanting my door to be closed, it was like I got a tap on the shoulder. Hey, you, this is God. like, so there wasn't this fanfare and lights and, all the people that I've known that passed away sitting there, because a part of me is like, if I had seen that, I might have gone. And it's interesting, Cynthia, I also hear that going into the light is kind of, in terms of the inversion, how so much spiritual stuff is inverted. So God just came as plain as day. It was like, hey, what you're listening to and what you're seeing it's this heaven on earth. Like going through life, it is these joyous times, it is these hard times. So you're not only feeling it in your body, but you're seeing it right outside of you. Okay, you can, if you wish, you can stay here or you can just go. All you have to do is close your eyes and you can just, be done with this life. Or, and again, this was so non judgmental, it was completely my choice. Or if you want to stay, the one thing I can tell you is if you do stay in this human body, you are going to learn so much. Okay. And it also wasn't, if you stay, you're going to be fine. I had no freaking idea what I was going to be like after this.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure.
yeah. And I knew too, having the connection with God and knowing that death there really isn't a death. I knew that I would see my girls, that I would still be a part of everything, even if this physical body went away. So I wasn't fearful of any of that. Yet I don't know how long I contemplated. It seemed like it was very fast. And I was like, okay, let's do this thing. Even though, man, just closing your eyes and being able to go, oh, quite delightful.
I know. I was going to say that sounds pretty tempting.
It does, right? Because it is. Even being a spiritual person, I mean, there are times where, during the like, I'm ready for this to be done. So I said, okay. And a nurse came in shortly after. I could barely get words out, but wanted my then husband to come. And usually he would come immediately. This time was like 2.5 or 3 hours. And I decided that morning I was going to eat. And that's, that basically I was going to live. And wouldn't you know, I think the doctor came in that day and basically said, you don't have cancer. We're not quite sure what it is, but it was this had to do this biopsy. Went through three other diagnoses, but it turns out it was called Beijing gensis. So apparently I breathed something in, went to my lung, and I was either the only person in the United States where that crossed the brain blood barrier, went up into my brain and brought these lesions. Yet I also know that, it might have been cancer initially. Who knows? And if it hadn't been this exactly, it would have been something else, because I needed to be, and I've had this happen to me before. So from this point on, I'm like, I do not need to be not literally knocked on the head to make changes. One of the big things that came out of this was I wasn't supposed to have a studio. I needed to let that, what I thought, dream go, because I was doing so much of the marketing. I was doing so much of my time was spent growing the business. So I needed to bring it back into my home where 98% of my time would be seeing clients versus paying sales tax and electricity and all that sort of thing. So realizing I needed to let that go, which was really hard. And having, it was like, not even more of an understanding of death, having gone through being able to have that choice, just brought me closer to that, I guess. And then through that process, it took 2 years for me to heal. So in the beginning, learning how to talk again, learning how to walk again. It was very dramatic. And then my mentor now laughs because it was the epitome of just being. I mean, there were times I could not move. I could not be a mom. I couldn't cook. I couldn't do dishes. I couldn't do my business. All I could do was sit there. That was it.
Yeah.
So there were so many great spiritual things that came from this. And also now when people come to me and they are like, I don't know if I want to go on, I have this very tough thing happening to me, I can go, well, let me tell you the story about what happened to myself. And a lot of times when they hear that, they can go, you understand. And I look at them and I say, I did it. You can too.
Definitely.
So it's not just me sitting here and going, oh, look at you. And that, oh, that's got to be hard. No, I get it. I had someone in
Hmm.
here 2 or 3 weeks ago that was going through something really hard. And, I basically said, 2 years. I couldn't walk. I couldn't. Okay, I get you. Okay, but I did it. So you want me to feel sorry for you when I did it myself? So it was pretty tough, but she
Hmm.
needed that jolt a little bit to go, you can do it. I've done it. You can
Hmm.
do it and you need to do it. And you'll be glad that you did it, even though right now it sucks.
Yeah. I love that. Because yeah, you and I mean, we have a similar story actually,
Yeah,
because yeah, I didn't go through a near-death experience like that, but I did go through 9 months of vertigo. So when I got
I've had
divorced,
vertigo.
I
Yes.
was so discombobulated and just I was devastated from the whole experience. And I was by myself for the first time in my life, essentially. I had
Yep.
never been on my own before. And I am 40 years old all of a sudden. And I'm like, I don't know how to be by myself. I was married for 19 years. And so then I got vertigo. And so it's similar to what you had, where literally I couldn't do anything but lay flat on my back with my eyes closed. And I couldn't drive, I couldn't do my work, I couldn't
Shucks.
do anything. And I was by myself.
Whoa.
I was, I was pretty terrified. But I look back on it now. And of course, now that I'm far enough away from that, I'm like, wow, that was such a pivotal time that really opened up my spirituality to an even higher level. And because it really forced me to meditate. I mean, I was meditating probably 3 hours a day, minimum.
Mhm.
Yeah, minimum. And that was exactly what I needed to do. So it's
Yeah.
funny how the universe is like, oh, we're going to make sure that you do this.
Okay. And it's interesting. I'll have to ask you this, Cynthia. So one part for me was my space was rent free.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything to pay, which was amazing. And then the other two people that I were working with kept working. And then a friend of mine helped manage the place. And it was at the time I was married and my husband's work carried us through. So I didn't really have to worry about any sort of income, which that allows a different set of freedom. Yet how did you pay for things? How did you
Yeah. So
That's
I
yeah.
had a significant amount of money because I sold my first business when
Yes.
I was 31. So I had a
That
restaurant for
amazing.
7 years
Yep.
and we sold everything after 7 years. And I was essentially retired when I was 31. And I took 2 years off, traveled the country, got an
Oh,
RV,
nice.
did all the stuff retired people do. And because we had built up a really amazing business, it was right outside of Zion National Park. And so I had a pretty good chunk of money, which was nice. And
Amazing.
so like I'm so grateful for that. I look back on those years. I call them affectionately my slave years. Because I was working 100 hours a week. I mean,
Yeah.
it's intense working a
Hmm.
restaurant. Anybody who's ever owned a restaurant will know that this is how it is. It's your life.
Hmm.
But it was time to move on. And my husband at the time, he was like, I'm burned out. I can't do this anymore. And he was quite a bit older than me, so I could understand that he was tired. And we just couldn't keep going at that level. So I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and just sell it. And so then I ended up going on the journey of finding hand analysis, which was quite a journey. And but it was after we moved to Colorado and he was still trying to find himself. See, this is sometimes what gets reflected back to us is the
Hmm.
relationships that we're in. And when
Hmm.
they're not working, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So he was struggling just to find himself. And I had already found hand analysis, but I knew that maybe there was something else I could do, but I didn't know what it was. And so then I ended up getting divorced, and it was very painful. And that was really when the spiritual mentor was being birthed. Like when I think
Yeah.
back of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is my work is evolving. So yeah, it was Colorado was like my incubation years, when I was living there in the mountains of Colorado. And I met my new husband there. It took some time, but yeah, I had like a 2-year transition period, and 9 months of it was like in this vertigo state.
Jeez.
It was
Wow.
crazy. But yeah, I was super grateful that I finished my first book actually at that time. And the universe was like, well, we're going to make sure you have a space to actually do that. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to expand my business. And I had a space like it was under the road. It was really beautiful. It opened up to the river. It was like
Whoa.
two levels, so I was like literally underneath like stairs. It kind of reminds me of like a Harry Potter cupboard or something like that. I was like in a
Wow.
cupboard under the stairs. That was
That's
me.
so cool.
But now I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, that was so you could finish your book. Like you weren't meant to like see clients there. And so like the whole thing now, looking back, it's like, oh wow, how perfect was that?
How it all makes sense.
Yeah. So
Right.
sometimes we think that something needs to be one way, and the universe is like, well, it's going to be this way, but it's not going to be the way that you think.
No, so always leaving up. This is what I would desire, yet I'm willing to go to my highest good. So willing to let go of expectations. And I'm going to do a plug for you. Cynthia's hand analysis, she did that for me as well as my mom and my daughter. Really, not. It's fun to do, but it's also like I never looked at the swirls on my fingertips before, so it was so enlightening to see everything that's the blueprint that's just right there. It's
Yeah.
so neat. So I really thank you so much for that. Because Cynthia, how I know Cynthia, she was on my podcast a while back. So yeah, it was so interesting, enjoyable, fun, and not saying fun in a trite way, just deep, and fun. It is fun to
Yeah.
look at and just and stars. I had some stars on my hands. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen that before. Yeah, so neat, so neat.
Yeah, hands are amazing.
They are.
Hands are the tangible reflection of who you are.
Oh. Well, and I have to tell you, really neat because my mom and my mom especially, I when I gifted it to her, I'm like, I don't know if my mom's going to take it up, and it was several months, and she finally did, and she
Mhm.
loved it. So that was
Yeah.
amazing. That was
Oh, I'm so
amazing.
glad. She was a lot
Hmm.
of fun to talk to. And yeah, it was, so much wisdom in her hands.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Good.
so much wisdom. Wisdom in your
Ah,
hands too, by the way. So,
thank
yes.
you. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So,
Yay.
so let's talk a little bit about this concept of good and evil,
Ooh.
because this is a juicy topic. I think that people they
Yes.
think, oh, I'm in a horrible place. So apparently you did a spiritual house clearing back in
Yeah.
2021 that helped you come to understand the difference between evil and light versus dark. So I would love to
That's
hear more about that, and what did it teach you?
awesome. So before that time, even knowing about the Great Awakening, when I became aware of that in 2020, which knowing that a lot of people were clear about that way before then. So understanding that we are in the spiritual warfare of light and dark, God and Satan, evil and goodness. So I even referred to it. Oh gosh, and I was a little trite about it when I look back. Oh, we're in this, light and dark, and I'd cleared houses before, and it was very easy to just walk in and go, oh, there's something not so happy there. Let's just send love to it, whatever. So it had been easy. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. And I understood we were in this battle, and seeing allowing myself to open up into the darkness that's happening in this world and to assimilate that and to look at it, like that was part of it too. Yet this clearing at this home, it turns out it's a couple blocks from me too. So that was really interesting that they had a company. So it was a wife and a husband and two younger girls. They'd had a clearing company come in and clear their house, yet there was still stuff going on. So we're not just talking about drawers being open. The wife was grabbed by her hair and dragged down the steps. I mean, this is major, major kind of stuff. So I went over there and we were going to have lunch when everything was finished up. So I'm like, okay, I'll go down to the basement, and there's a portal there. So everybody was upstairs. I, sat in the corner of the basement, and then suddenly, Cynthia, these demonic presences, like literally look like how you would imagine demons to look, just black and red eyes. They suddenly started showing me and my physical body. They were ripping me to shreds. They were eating me.
Ew.
It was just
terrifying.
Yeah, it was very, and I remember looking at it going, oh my, I've never encountered anything like this before. So I called my mentor, and she happened to pick up the phone, which, how often do people pick up the phone right off the bat? So she did. And I'm like, I'm in this situation. I've never been quite around anything like this. And she goes, first, they don't like you there. What I would suggest you do is to start reciting the Lord's Prayer, and then imagine that they're put into the other side of the portal and the door is closed. All right, you go to work. So I'm like, okay. So I started saying that and imagine the portal being closed. And again, this is kind of my neighborhood. So knowing just down the street, all this is going on as well.
Wow. Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah. And my mentor also said, yeah, when you're done, you need to be done. There's no lunch. You go home and make sure everything that the portal's been sealed, clear stuff off. So when I got done, I went up to the mom and said the same thing. Can't do lunch right now. No, everything is okay. I just need to go home and make sure everything is good. So when I got home, there was still more that I needed to do. And then from that point, a couple months later, I was psychologically attacked. I've never had that happen before. And the beautiful part about that is it happens when you're doing something good. Like knowing I'm being noticed and they're trying to stop me and trying to hold me down. So I'm not concerned about any of this anymore. Yet that was pivotal because it allowed me to see the level of darkness that we're talking about. It is pure evil, pure hatred, pure me saying dark and light, it was darker than I could have even imagined. Yet it was so good to experience that too, because I believe part of this awakening is that darkness is not separate from me either.
Right.
So now to look back at those demons, because since then too, I had I was doing a session for someone, and these really dark demons came into the room and basically said, we are ready to heal. Can you help us? And because I'd seen stuff on this level before, I just looked at them and, there was a smell in the room. Like it's so tactile, yet it was like, okay, let's go. So this group of so interesting. They were with me for like a week. We did some major stuff. And then when they let go of the darkness, they just evaporated, went on their merry way. So also understanding that none of this is outside of us, none of it is outside of me, because I've also seen parallel lives where, there was one where I was a serial killer. There was one where I was a ruler somewhere in Asia, and generations of families I killed. I was a man, took women as my concubines or whatever. And it was just how much hurt and pain that I had brought about in this world. So accepting that we are all of this. We are the good, we are the darkness, we are the evil, we are the beauty. And that when you can fully embody all of this, it starts to transform. So I had to see it in a different level right in front of my face, that I had to deal with it. So it was so meaningful and so beautiful and scary at the time. Yet now I'm not scared of any of it because
Hmm.
it's me.
Right. So you think maybe part of the reason why we're going through this is that if we see that darkness, we can also see the light more.
Yeah. And I think that's part of my process. I don't know if this experience is going to be for everybody, but that now the parallel lives that all of the lives that I experienced were not great, where I had been really bad. And these were the ones that I saw. So not, oh, this one where you were just, this beautiful person. They were all just, oh my God, look at all the people you hurt here and look what you did here. So I think that was important for me to really see that I have this capability, that I did these things, that I was evil, that I just, and then there was one dimensional life where I was a minion to this dastardly being. I mean, so we get to choose what we want to be, and in this life it is like, okay, I really, I want to be high vibe. I am high vibe. This ascension is great, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to go to the heart now. And I've been these things, done all these things, and now I'm choosing this.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
Right. Yeah,
And
I've been shown some of those negative past lives too.
have you?
Yeah, I was told in one of my automatic writings that I abused my power in a previous lifetime as a high priestess of the Mayan culture.
Whoa.
And it wasn't a terrible thing, but some people would end up dead because I was in a position of authority. And if I didn't like you, you know how they always did those blood sacrifices. They did a lot of those. And so apparently I was in a position of influence. And if I didn't like what you were doing, I would just be like, oh, let's do a blood sacrifice for that person,
Yeah. Yeah.
So my spirit guides have told me that part of what I'm healing is from that lifetime. And that was also why I had my voice severely restricted in terms of like, we're going to make you work at this, where people aren't going to listen to you for a long time. And it's like, oh, okay. So that was like my whole childhood, right? I was like,
yes, I can totally relate to that.
yeah,
Yep.
total to all the childhood, all the young years of my life. I pretty much was like, you don't speak unless you're spoken to. You're the youngest in the family. You're already way behind everybody else. Who are you to think that you can do that? You're too young, you're too little, you're too small. Like I got that over and over and over again when I was growing up, because I'm 6 years behind my next older brother. And so now I look at it like, oh, well, it all is appropriate. And I chose to balance this karma, that's what my guides told me too. They're like, oh yeah, you just chose to balance this right in this lifetime. So it's, again, you're not a victim. Like it's all perfectly orchestrated. So we don't always need to understand necessarily like, oh, I was a murderer, or oh, I was this horrible person. I don't want people necessarily to think like that, but just recognizing that everything that's being reflected back to you is purposeful.
Yes.
So I think that's the bottom line, right?
Right. And it is how you look at it too, like looking at those demons and just being like using that as another spiritual experience versus why am I here? Oh my gosh, why are they doing this to me? In terms of being born, I was born, grew up in Georgia. So in it was a college town, so there was some expansion in it, but it was very constrictive Christian. And I grew up with my father was going to be a Catholic priest, obviously decided not to. We did not go to church. Okay. And that was a big deal because I felt everybody went to church, and not having a connection with God or growing up with that being automatic, like I was to find that. And it was so hard as a child because nothing fit. I rode my bicycle to church. I read the Bible. It didn't resonate with me. So I was like, okay, I guess this God isn't for me. And there was this huge loneliness inside of myself. And I was an only child too, so lonely, another component. And it wasn't until I found my first teacher and started doing meditation, because I was really off balance too. So I was in advertising working 80 hours a week, not 100 like you. Um, and that was my foray into spirituality. Yet I didn't realize that it was to help me have a connection to spirit, and to, again, being knocked over the head with some of these parallel lives that I not only experienced them in my mind, but I felt the pain of them. Like there was one where I was stabbed in the back, and suddenly my back started hurting so badly, like not just seeing it, but feeling it and going through it again. So, what was my point in this? I don't know.
Well, you and I have some similar background in
Yes, we do.
religion for sure. I grew up as a Mormon
Yeah.
in Utah, and I, when I was 15, I just decided it wasn't for me, and I was just ready to move on. I just recognized the power and control that the religion was trying to put over the population, and I'm like, there's something not right with this. And I just intuitively knew there was something seriously wrong with what was going on. And I think, that was just the start of my own awakening, was like, you need to get out from that influence. And so I said, I'm not going back. And I never went back.
Oh my God. What'd your family say to that? You being
Well, my
15.
family, this is kind of interesting too, is my family was already kind of out of the church,
Mm.
but they didn't really give me the full story. They protected me from the full story. Like most of my
Whoa.
life, I didn't know the history of what my family went through. But yeah, so they kind of kept it hidden, and it, looking back, it's like, oh, okay, so there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to be healing on the family line. And
Ah,
like, I didn't
got it.
realize at the time, like, you don't go in knowing that, but now I do. So yeah, they would just send me off to church by myself, essentially. So
Whoa.
it's like, okay, whatever. But
Ah,
yeah, it was an interesting dynamic going on for sure. There was a lot of darkness and a lot of control, and a lot of things were going on behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of, that were pretty dark. Yeah, I'll just put it that way.
okay. Well, and it's with you talking about this too, like you growing up in that religion, me not having it and wanting it so badly. I think that's been my thing is I wanted to be a Christian. I wanted to fit in, and then finding my own path. And it's interesting too when you talk about your lineage. There's so many people in my genealogy that were preachers, priests. There was one family that had seriously a cult. Okay, and I've been called a cult leader and working with the devil, which is funny. Yet I'm doing it completely differently. Yet it's the same. It's seen as the same thing, which is another wow factor. Yet it's me. Part of this process has been feeling comfortable in standing in my own 2 feet about my faith and my faith in God and Jesus and, all these ascended masters, and looking at everything and going, oh my God, this was right. This was true. This was right. It's just, there's so much more to where we come from, God, and it's, to try and constrict it down into a certain dogma that it's really impossible.
I agree. Yeah. There's so many good things about, certain religious
Mhm.
practices and
Yes.
things like that. So yeah, I don't want people to think that I'm like anti-religious or whatever. I'm really not.
Mhm.
I'm actually just pro finding your way.
Mhm.
What's going to work for you? Is it based in love or is it based in fear?
There you go.
That's really how you know it's good or not for you.
Mhm.
If something is based in fear, then something is wrong with that, in my opinion.
I would agree.
So if you can find love in your heart from the practice, then it's probably a good path for you. But you should be open-minded and tolerant of everyone else on the planet because we're all one and we're all connected.
Yes.
And that's ultimately the truth, right? The truth of
Mhm.
how it really is. And we're all just trying to figure it out. We all go through that veil of amnesia,
Yes, exactly.
So it's like, okay, and everybody signs up for the path that they're going to be on,
Mhm.
So who am I to judge? Like, if you're on that path, like, that's great. That's perfect for you, just as my path is perfect for me. So I love that we have all these different ways to come to the same conclusion
Yes.
of, yes, we're all divine. We're all part of this one energy of God, of creation. And we're going to get there in different ways, but we're all
Mhm.
going to get there eventually.
Mhm. And on different
Right?
time schedules as well. Yeah. Some
Yeah.
sooner than others, but yeah, it's all going to happen to everybody.
Yeah. So I love that, you know, there is more than one way to get there. Because if we all got there in the same way, it'd be kind of boring and kind of like,
Yes.
how would we really learn and expand?
Exactly. Very well put, Cynthia. Oh, and I'm
So
just basking in that.
yeah, so I want to pivot a
Mm.
little bit to since we started bringing up lineage.
Yeah.
So we also have some. I notice you're wearing your Starseed shirt, and so the term Starseed. I want to bring this up. You discovered that you had Starseed lineage recently. And I just want to talk about that because, we think that we're just human, right?
Yes.
Or maybe, hopefully people don't still think that they're the only ones in the universe, which is definitely not true.
Mm.
Um, so tell me about your starseed awakening and what that entailed.
Yes. I had always believed that there was more to the world or to galaxies, but I had never really dove into it or had a reason to dive into it. And probably about has it been 3 years ago, discovering star seeds. And right off the bat, there was a Palladian connection. Yet when I came to that, I started crying because suddenly I understood myself that I had never fit in here, that I always felt like the black sheep or someone who was looking at like I was the only one looking at these things going, "Hey, look at this." No, we're not going to look at that. You're cuckoo, you're crazy. No. Um so it suddenly made sense. And I've also never felt like any place that I've lived, not that I've lived in, I've lived in 3 states at this point, that nothing ever felt like home. And then reading about the Palladians and their kind of their personality traits, I was like, oh yeah, that and that and that. And then also understanding and knowing that I am here to help the planet descend. Like all of that clicked. And it was just this your spiritual and God, and that's like one component. The Great Awakening is another component, opening up into that and seeing all that, and then really opening up into the galactical portion, because I believe the Great Awakening is all about this too. It's discovering, that we are not alone, that there's so much more to this world than we're programmed to think. And then I started, was very interested initially about, oh, what lineage am I? And now I'm just like, I'm all of them. Uh, it's countless. So it really doesn't matter. So I also have, ascended beings, galacticals come to work with me. And it's to the point where I don't even ask where they're from. I don't care about that anymore. It's not that I don't care. It's just not important. It's like, yeah, we're all that. We're all, and please come help. And that's another thing, asking for assistance. It's just, and it helps so much also having this. Okay, let me see if I can articulate this well. Having this connection with God and knowing that there is way more, and not fearing death anymore, believing that the soul is eternal, but yet also having these connections to, apparently it's like Star Wars out there. There are so many different beings and how they look and how they interact. It's just, it's so cool, again, to know that we're not alone in that aspect, that there is so much more to this world, to us, and knowing that our DNA is going to be elevating. And it's just friggin' mind blowing.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
And
the galactic family.
exciting.
I
Oh my
love the
gosh.
thought of us reconnecting to our galactic family and really recognizing that we're not alone. It's so amazing. So yeah, so star seeds are part of helping the planet ascend. So yeah, I see that as the role of a star seed as well. So yeah, that's another reason I'm sure why you and I connect so much, is
Yeah.
just having this awareness and having this connection. And
Yes.
yeah, it's true that there are many different lineages, and you've probably spent multiple lifetimes in all sorts of different
Yes.
environments. Yeah, so the concept of that is maybe hard for some people to grasp. So how would people go about just developing a relationship with the galactic realm? Like, what would you recommend?
I I love Dolores Cannon. I think just watching, so she's passed away at this point. She was an incredible hypnotherapist, and she did it kind of like as a journalist, essentially. Like she really, she went, so hypnotherapists are basically saying, hey, don't go past this level, like don't get too deep into the psyche. And she said, oh, I am gonna go through to that and see what happens, and just trust, what I'm hearing from people. So she started getting all this galactical information. She has she's like a treasure trove of info. So on any of the video platforms like YouTube, Rumble, all of those, you can just go and watch. And she has books just to see what she's encountered, because she's not, again, coming through it like, oh, this just came through me. Oh, I connected to John and took John through hypnotherapy. So we suddenly, John started, talking about this other galaxy he was in. He like, he wouldn't consciously know of it. And everything that he says, there's some accuracy to it. So let me go to Fred, let me go to Delilah and see, and collected all these stories where she started gathering, well, this seems true and this pocket seems true. So her information, like I can't, every time I listen to her, I learn something new about things. She is just a delight, and so rational. So not this airy fairy woohoo person. She's just a good person to
Definitely.
start watching her interviews and watching some of her, to really start connecting you to the possibility of more. So I would recommend that. And there also, if you just Google Brave or whatever you like to do, DuckDuckGo, Starseeds, there is so much information out there, because people are discovering they're connecting with it more than ever before. There are so many people that are talking about it, so many people that are connecting to it. Is it April Elizabeth or Elizabeth April? I always forget the her name. She's in her early 30s. She's got a really good following now of people, and talking about the Great Awakening as well. So it's really interesting. There's this definite older folks who are in there, like so many things that I've been to. mostly people over 50. So there's this great wave of mature individuals that know what's going on.
Yeah.
And starting this younger crew that's starting to really realize that they are ascending and coming in, are being much more connected right off the bat. Did that help kind of answer your question, Cynthia?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I love Dolores Cannon. So,
Oh, she's
yeah.
great.
I mean, that's when I first connected to the Pleiadians, was in a QHHT hypnosis session.
Okay.
And they basically came in and said, "Oh yeah, we want to communicate with you." And,
My gosh.
please talk to us, So then I started channeling them through my automatic writing, and it was just so amazing, but it was after I moved to Sedona, which really ramped up everything, because now that I essentially live in a vortex, it's a lot of fun.
Well, and I did have one podcast interview with a guy in the UK, and he was talking about Sedona. I just listened to it recently about how it's very open, yet there's both there. Like it's a
Yeah, that's
interesting
true.
place to be. Do you feel that?
Definitely. Yeah, my neighbor, my next door neighbor, he's super nice, but he is the exact opposite of spiritual.
Wow.
He's completely atheist. He doesn't want to talk about it. He's not
Mm.
interested in it. I mean, he's a wonderful person. He's very kind.
Mm.
I can always, leave my dog with him if I need a dog
Oh,
sitter. I mean, he's,
wow.
he's a great guy, but he's completely oblivious to, and he doesn't want to know. I've
Right.
asked him, like, are you interested in this? He's like, no, I don't want to know anything.
Hmm.
So yeah, there is definitely, and he's been here for 30 years. So there is that,
Wow.
you know, contrast,
Hmm.
which I
Right.
find really interesting. But
Wow.
but yeah, Sedona seems to choose who she wants to be in her town. So
Interesting.
I don't know if you've ever heard that, but
No, I
like,
haven't.
yeah, Sedona, like the spirit of Sedona it's based upon a woman. Her name was Sedona. That's how we got the town name. And when I first moved here, I just felt immediately welcome. Like, oh, you belong here. This is home. Oh my God, I
Nice.
felt so amazing here. I loved every second of being here. And then after I moved here, I learned, like, oh, Sedona let you in. And I'm like, huh, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? Don't I
Hmm.
get to choose where I live? And so then I learned, oh no, Sedona will kick you out if you don't belong. And so, like, I learned that the
Oh.
previous owner of my house actually couldn't tolerate being here anymore. They had some sort of illness. They had to go to a
Oh
lower
gosh.
altitude. And we're not even that high. We're at like 4,500 feet, but he had to go down to like Phoenix. So that was why they sold the house. They created this like dream house, which I got to move into,
Oh.
but they couldn't tolerate, like he couldn't tolerate being here. So I thought that was really interesting.
Whoa.
So
Yeah.
I've learned
Hmm.
that that is how Sedona operates.
Okay. Well, and when it's your time to go, I hopefully it will come easily, or maybe it will never come. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I'm just grateful that I get to be here now.
I am too.
And I definitely feel like this is where I belong and this is where I'm supposed to be. And
Mm.
yeah,
That's
it's,
so nice. I'm looking for that in terms of my next move. But knowing that being here in Ohio is perfect right now. So, yet again, never feeling that, oh, this is where I'm, meant to be. Yeah, I will be looking forward to that and just being where I am right now. We're going to have to finish up in a minute because I have a session, but yet, Cynthia, can you show your shirt that you got from
yeah,
me?
yeah, of course. Yes. So this is my shirt. Uh, and I got this from Eden. So yeah, she's got some amazing merchandise that you can check out on her website. So yeah, before we wrap up, I wanted to
Yeah.
just say that you've got your new book coming out.
Yes.
So let's do a quick talk about that, and then how do
Yes.
people reach you?
Yeah. So the wisdom of just being, why and how to be calm in these chaotic times is so beautiful. Again, the editor that I'm using was referred to me by Cynthia. So that's a beautiful story. I imagine we're still about 5 to 6 months out, but this has been a work in progress because it started being about the health thing that I went through, and then I learned about the Great Awakening, and suddenly I was like, oh, well, my health thing seems pretty small. So I stopped for a while, and then was like, oh, let me combine both of them. So I had an editor in Florida initially when I decided I'm going to bring them both together, and she read my draft and she's like, "What the heck is this? I I don't understand this. I can't work with you anymore." So then I found a second editor many years later who was beautiful, and he basically said, "Eden, you have to write this book. I'm going to help you." He ended up passing away, which is a whole other interesting thing. And now Karen's shown up. So this has definitely been a work in progress. And there, from what I understand, there's so many books coming out right now on this topic, which I'm like, I would love to be another voice in that because there have been so many great experiences with it. So very soon it should be real and live and tangible. And then just to point out to the t-shirts, probably got about 34 designs on my site. So my website is edenjustbe.com. I do not do this to make money. I do it because it's a labor of love. Like the more of us that wear something about the ascension on us where we don't have to talk and we can just walk out and be it. And I've got some controversial shirts as well, which one of them is Illuminati Sucks. And none of these are meant to be mean spirited. But it was so neat when I wore that shirt. When people, I had one woman in the store basically point to me and she goes, you got guts wearing that. She's like, yeah, there's some stuff going on. And I would have never pinpointed her as someone who knew anything. That same day, I had a younger guy basically go, oh gosh, all the cloning and stuff that's going on, I don't want to know more about that. And I just said, hey, it's all okay. It's good to know everything's fine. So it's really interesting to see the conversations that come from these. And my point is just to help wake people up a little bit. So, Cynthia, thank you so much for purchasing one and letting me talk about them as well, because it is just, I'm again just excited. Again, my role is pontificating the Great Awakening, just like my podcast. Been doing it for like 2 years, and I'm still like, I don't think I should need to stop because I can't stop talking about it, being it, embodying it. I mean,
Well,
this is
and
what I'm supposed to be.
it's only going to ramp up too in the next year because pretty soon everybody's going to know what that means.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. The planet is in a definite transition right now, and there
Yes.
is so much going on that's going to be amazing. So
Yes.
your work is only going to be more and more important over time.
Okay.
So yeah, so thank you for being out
You're
there
welcome.
doing
Oh,
it.
and Cindy, one more thing I want to put in there is I've been trained with the Galactic Council of Nine to do these COVID vaccinations healings. And I've done at this point several, and they are just amazing. So you can see we've done live blood tests of blood before the healings and after. It's dramatic. It's just dramatic. So I would love to do more of those because they're incredible. And Jesus is a big part of it. So whatever you're comfortable with, because some people I just talk about it being Jesus oriented, which it is, and then with some I can be much more explosive with it. But it is just there's so much that we are so ready to have healing and to have divine light come to us, and it is time. And Cynthia, thank you so much for having me on, letting me talk about this. Yeah, it's beautiful. Whew.
Oh, well, thank
Oh,
you,
shucks.
Eden.
Oh, you're
Yes,
welcome.
I'm so grateful for you and just
Oh,
doing all
thanks.
that great work out there. So
Thank you.
thanks everybody for tuning in. Definitely check out Eden and her website and her beautiful merchandise and her podcast and all of that good stuff. Can't wait for her book to come out.
Oh,
And we appreciate each and every one of you who is tuning in. So
yes.
please show your support for this show by liking and following and sharing it with a friend that might benefit from this valuable information. And we are always interested in hearing your comments. Please let us know what you want to hear more about so that I can bring it onto the show. And as always, I wish you infinite abundance, and let's ascend together. Thank you so much and have a beautiful day.
Thanks for joining us on Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Please show your support by tuning in, following, sharing your comments, and inviting others to listen. Take it further by visiting Ascension17.com for deeper spiritual growth, guidance, programs, and products.